Oh, 1 second. Welcome, college baseball fans. I'm Monty Taylor. It is 1 a.m. here on the East Coast. Wake Forest and UNC just played a thriller. They finished about 30 minutes ago. I am no Micah tonight as he had his own 16-hour marathon at the ballpark today at the SoCon tournament. So I am joined by Nick, who also got to enjoy tonight's thriller in person. Nick, how are you doing? How are you feeling after that? That was electric.
Oh man, that was God. What a roller coaster of a game, like for both sides. Just unreal. Late into the night, humid, hot. I mean, just what a game to be a part of. That was honestly one of the better college baseball games I've ever been to. Like just the momentum swings on the edge of your seat. Guys on base all the time. It was crazy. And what's lost in all of it is that you kind of forget that there was a stellar pitching match in the first 6 innings.
That was yesterday.
Yeah, right. That was yesterday. And now what's going through my mind is, Carolina coming back and Wake coming back and tying it. It was just absolutely nuts. The atmosphere tonight. I think this was the best. I mean, it was a sold out crowd.
Standing room only.
Yeah, obviously the best atmosphere of the week so far was this Wake Carolina game.
Yeah, and you had some great atmospheres last night, and with NC State and Duke last night, and then NC State and Virginia Tech the night before. But this was a even bigger level because it's Friday night. It's Chase Burns. It's big one, and it's great. And we're going to talk about that one probably a lot more in depth. But first, we're going to start with Virginia and Florida State. That was an interesting game. That was a pitcher's duel for the first. I mean, that was a really good game for the first 5 or 6 innings. Jamie Arnold was fantastic. He went 6 innings, struck out 9, only gave up 2 runs. But the 3 through 9 hitters for Virginia were a combined 0 for 17 with no base runners against him. They were absolutely overmatched. Only Griff O'Farrell and Bobby Whelan were able to have any success against him. Griff hit a solo home run and scored a run on a bloop double by Whelan, and that was it for them. But once Arnold got out of the game, they were able to find some success against Carson Dorsey in the 7th. But unfortunately, at that point, they were down 11-2 because Florida State had a massive 7-run inning. So did you get any? What were your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I was able to watch that and that basically most of the game anyway. So Florida State was just on. Oxford was kind of on. I know he gave up a couple of hits there towards the end, but I mean, I picked Florida State to move on in this pool, and they did. I think Florida State's just clicking right now. They're really feeling themselves. I think the skid that they had to end the year with losing 2 of 3 to Pitt to end the season, and then who did they lose to?
They just dropped 1 game to Georgia Tech.
Oh yeah, that's right. They dropped one to Georgia Tech. Yeah. So to get revenge on Georgia Tech and then to beat Virginia, the higher favored seed, is huge. And I think they got a lot of momentum. And I think the matchup tomorrow against Wake Forest is really going to favor them.
Yeah, especially since they got the rest. And we'll preview that game in a little bit. But yeah, no, Florida State was fantastic. And they were really good. The big news I got out of the Florida State press conference, Cam Leiter is not going to pitch this weekend at all. He is just starting to throw off a mound, and they're being very cautious with him. There were some thoughts that he could come out of the bullpen this weekend. He is not going to come out this weekend. They do hope he will be able to come out of the bullpen for regionals. So
it's huge that they've got the arms, man. They got names all over the bullpen and rotation.
And Carson Dorsey did get lit up, but he only threw 17 pitches before they pulled him. So he's still going to be able to pitch
Right.
this weekend, and they may look to him. I don't know if they necessarily turn around and start him tomorrow, or the possibility of Sunday, but it's going to be interesting to see. But James Tibbs was awesome. He had the like late home run that made it 12-7 instead of 11-7. But other than that, he drove in 4 other runs besides that solo home run. So he was on all night. UVA pitching, just again, they couldn't quite muster certain things, and they couldn't get outs in that 7th inning, and that 7th inning was the difference. So it was a great ball game for most of it, and it was also funny because one minute we're talking about how UVA is about to get run ruled, and then all of a sudden UVA just explodes for 5 runs right away in the 7th inning, and now we're talking about UVA possibly coming back, which ultimately they didn't. But
real quick, how are we feeling about Florida State potentially being a national seed?
I'm feeling pretty good, actually. If they beat Wake Forest, I think they've got a really, really strong resume. But if they win the ACC championship, I think you've got to, give it to them, right?
Right.
So
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
With all the SEC teams following, all the big guys, Arkansas, Kentucky, A&M, Tennessee, not one of them won a game in the SEC tournament. So it opens up like potential for Florida State to host be a national seed.
Now, Josh wants to know if you put any hypothetical investments in your picks this week because you've been on fire. I will point out that he actually did not. He barely nipped ahead of me, and things were not looking good for him with 2 outs in the 9th inning today. In the top of the 9th inning, he was
unfortunately my champion's out. So
yeah, but your daily picks, you went 3-0 today, so you should be 10-2.
I think 10-2 overall.
Yeah, and I'm 11 and I'm 9-3 because I had UNC, you had Wake Forest. That was gonna do that, but we'll have new picks tomorrow. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. But we'll move on to the next game. The second best game of the day, which resulted in a walk-off. Clemson comes back. Micah is devastated. That's actually the real reason why he can't come on this show. Louisville was about to really put themselves back in the conversation. They would have an outside shot, but they would have at least found a way to put themselves back in the conversation. What were your thoughts on that game?
When Clemson is down, you got to step on their throat. And, I remember Micah talking about how this series earlier in the season was so heated, and you could feel the intensity. Just like even watching it, because I watched the first half of this game while I was at work. And when Louisville jumped out to that lead, you knew that they were just, I never seen Louisville that excited all year. And they could feel it. They could feel that they had put a statement on like, hey, committee, look at us. Like, this is what we did today. And unfortunately, the bullpen just kind of blew it. Overtop was on fire.
Which is it's a common theme this year. Unfortunately, It was Tucker Biven again, who it looked like they didn't quite – they put Evan Webster back in relief. He did okay, but Tucker Biven did not do well this week. He hadn't done well against Clemson, and unfortunately, first pitch he throws out of the bullpen, Jimmy Overtop ties the game with a home run.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I really was hoping Louisville could be a potential bid stealer. I think even if they had won, some things had to break their way as well. They were not in control of their own destiny at all. But it's an improvement from last year. I think if you're Louisville and your season, you kind of feel like your season just ended. You were back in the conversation. You were back in the regionals conversation after not even making this tournament at all to begin with. So I think the future's bright for Louisville. I mean, who knows? The committee could sneak them in. I really highly doubt it, but there's like a 5% chance. maybe even less.
Yeah, it's not great. Looking great for them. Clemson, on the other hand, needed that to boost their national seed chances because they did not have the best finish to the regular season, and then they lost to Miami, obviously. So big win for them, and obviously they left pretty much right away after the game because they're not too far from Charlotte, and they were able to get on home tonight. And it was a really good game. And it was got walk by Jimmy Obertop. But you got to feel for Louisville. Probably ends their season. They've been a blast to watch. I know Mike has been a huge fan, but that's all she wrote for him, I believe.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
Yep. So that brings us to the last game of the day, which is an instant classic. I cannot remember how long the Duke NC State game was last year. That went into extras. It was quite long as well, and they had probably more pitching changes early. But Chase Burns was about as good as I've seen him. UNC could not see the slider out of his hand at all. You could tell because they would start swinging and then realize that it's out of the zone, but it was too late. They've already, the amount of chasing. I don't know if I've seen North Carolina chase that much. I don't know if I thought a lot of times when I see Chase Burns pitch, he's getting a lot of swing and misses in the zone. He didn't really need to go into the zone too much tonight. I mean, he did get a bunch of guys looking as well, but 15 strikeouts. He did have the 2 walks. He was only able to go 6 innings, but my goodness, I mean, what a pleasure that was.
I mean, it was insane to watch. They didn't have an answer for Chase Burns, UNC.
Yeah, I was just about to point out, it's also funny, the umpire strike zone was not great tonight for either side, really, but there was a particular moment where Chase Burns got a little help on one, and it was pretty funny because it was a pretty bad call, and even Chase was like, all right.
Yeah, there were even I specifically remember there were some instances with the bullpen guys. Like there were some calls that Carolina got that Wake didn't, and vice versa.
Yep. Yeah, it was very interesting, the strike zone. I wish we had a report card on it, but it's almost sometimes at times where it felt like he didn't want to go home tonight.
Yeah. Right. They just want to keep this thing going, right?
Yeah. So, but Chase Burns was electric. I mean, worth the price of admission. I know he had the 2 walks. I know he gave up. I mean, he didn't give up a run, but I don't think this is my 4th time seeing him live. I don't think I've seen a team having to chase and look as confused as that. Normally they strike out, but they don't necessarily look lost.
Right. I mean, no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and the surprising thing was, as soon as they got Chase Burns out of there, just like UVA with Jamie Arnold earlier, that mental, it's like a relief that you get to face literally anybody else on the planet besides Chase Burns, and it kind of rejuvenates you. And they were able to come back. It was the only time they'd come back from a 4-run deficit this season was a midweek against Rutgers that I can't remember if it was the one Micah went to or not, but it was a midweek game against Rutgers. They were down 4-0 and they came back on this one. And the other cool thing about this game is the stars for both teams showed up.
Yeah.
On defense and offense, because Kurtz made that play to get D'Onofrio.
Yeah, 3rd.
Yep. And Vance Honeycutt. Now it's funny. Vance Honeycutt did have an initial bad read on a fly ball. I think it was Seaver King hit it, and but he was able to get back and rob him of extra bases. But he may not have had to do that had he not taken a first step in. But and both those guys, what was really cool too as well is Honeycutt hits the go ahead double right to the left center field gap or right center field gap. Where did Nick Kurtz hit the game tying double in the 9th?
Right, center field gap.
It was almost identical. Yeah. It was almost like, oh, Honeycutt, I see what you did. I'll do it too.
Yeah, I remember sitting there, and I was around some Wake fans, and they all just came. You got to get Nick up there. You just got to give Nick a chance because it was down to 2 outs. I mean, literally 2 outs, 3-2 count for Nick. And coming up clutch like that was huge. His defense was impeccable. I mean, getting the runner out at third was huge for him. That first home run, I remember you and I texting back and forth about. I think it was Houston's home run. I mean, Monty, I was sitting off the left field line, and when I say that thing was like an inch, it was an inch. Like I thought this is gonna like hit the top of the wall or just like barely scrape and then just kind of bounce in front of the left fielder, but it just hit the top and it was gone.
And it was funny.
Unreal
It's
home
funny because
run.
I think in a lot of ballparks that might have been an F7. Doesn't matter. This place is a launch pad.
Right.
Tellier had a good, like no doubt shot. That was, I think, what did I tell you? 107 off the bat.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it was fantastic. But I did want to bring up something in the press conference. We did confirm with Chase Burns that that there was a revenge factor as motivation in this game.
I'm
And I
sure.
wanted to ask you if you guys had not, if Wake Forest had not won this game, would it have still counted as revenge for Chase Burns because of his performance?
I'm sure not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they would rather get there. I mean, remember that these guys got swept by Carolina at home.
Yeah.
So the revenge factor was not only Chase's bad
Right.
start, but it was the sweep that really put Wake rock bottom in the season. Like, I think that's when they fell to their lowest.
Yeah.
So to come back to where they are, get back in the top 10 for a little bit, be in the conversation for hosting, and having Chase do what he did to get revenge. I mean, he is so exciting to watch. Just the strikeouts, the electricity off the mound. It was unreal watching him again.
Yeah, it was so much fun from the get go. And you know, again, I can't get over the this game was just so good. And I think some people might be like, I don't know if it's a classic, blah blah blah. And I'm like, all the stars showed up. You even got Michael Massey coming in to close out that game in the ninth, or in the
So
in the
happy
12th.
for that guy.
And again, good thing they had the extra insurance runs, because I wouldn't have put it out if it was only a 2-run game. I can't tell you confidently that North Carolina doesn't come back and we're not still all here,
Right. Yeah.
So just what a game. But Nick Kurtz again. So you get Nick Kurtz and Vance Honeycutt. They Vance Honeycutt gets the go ahead double in the 8th, and then Nick Kurtz with 2 down to their last strike. I'm getting ready to type North Carolina wins their play the semifinals, and Nick Kurtz hits it to the same spot. And then we go to extras. And North Carolina certainly had their chances, especially in the 11th. With the play, they got the bases loaded with 1 out. Yeah, they didn't get the bunt down, but they did get the bases loaded anyway. And Merrick Houston makes a great defensive play. It does. I'm not sure. I'm not confident about the rules, whether he's blocking the plate. I don't know what else he's supposed to do. So the call stands ultimately. It doesn't matter what I think.
It was weird because everyone kept saying in the stands, it's a force out. Like, you're not going to call that like on a second baseman or anything. Like, it's a force out. So
also, how do you end the game on that?
Yeah.
Like, because that would have ended the game as a walk-off. It would have been a walk-off blocking the plate. I don't even know what you would call it.
Yeah.
So luckily it didn't happen. But UNC still had a chance. They still had the bases loaded with 2 outs. They grounded up to end the inning. And obviously that's got to be super frustrating. And then you turn around and guess what? Guess who's coming up? Nick Kurtz. Yeah. So Merrick Houston, he hits a liner to get on base. And then Nick Kurtz, I just posted it on Twitter. He knew it off the bat. It was gonzo.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously that was the big moment, the big go ahead. But I think the insurance runs were really important as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think because who knows who's coming out of the pen if it's 7-5. They might have sucked with Ariola. Shout out to him for Wake Forest, because when the bullpen started giving up runs, I mean, Will Ray didn't really see much action. He just got 1 out. But Shinosky and who else? Gunther, LeFew. I mean, they were giving a lot of people heart attacks. And Ariola was nails, set up Michael very nicely. The bats set up Michael very nicely. It was very good to see. I'm sure all of Deacon Nation is very excited to see Michael Massey back. whether it's out of the pen or in the starting rotation. Just to have him there is huge for them.
And I can confirm they're going to go with Hartle tomorrow. That's not a surprise.
Right.
Everyone but Burns and Massey will be available should they be needed. So even if they pitch tonight, if it wasn't Massey, wasn't Burns, they're available. I mean, obviously somebody like Will Ray, who I think threw 2 pitches and got his one out that he was asked to get, it's as if he didn't pitch because he only threw 2 pitches, did his job, and sat down.
Yeah.
So, all right, now we get to move on to the fun stuff. We got, in less than 12 hours, in about 11 and a half hours, Wake Forest is back. They are facing Florida State, and they're going to be tired, but they've also they just pitched and played deep into the night. So how are they going to be able to bounce back? Now, obviously that question was asked in the press conference, and they're not going to say anything, but they're ready to roll. They're gritty. They're going to be fine, right? But you got to think it's going to affect them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, hell, it's 1:15 in the morning. I'm sure these guys are just getting back to their hotel rooms right now after showering and everything. They're going to be back in the ballpark still kind of buzzing off of what just happened, 12 hours ago.
Yeah, like how do you go to sleep? I'm sure you're exhausted, but like
how do you go to sleep? I was thinking about that.
Adrenaline going to be pumping. I will say it did seem like Nick and Chase were pretty tired. If you go look at the videos, like they're not as happy. Obviously, they've had a moment to calm down, but I think some of the adrenaline was starting to wear off. You can see it in their answers, and they were ready to go home and get some sleep.
Right. Yeah, and I don't blame them. I remember real quick, I was getting to my seat. I ran into Nick's dad. I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" He was very nervous. That was most nervous I've ever seen Mr. Kurtz. And I shook his hand, and he's like, "You ready?" He's like, "Yep." And that was it. So I'm sure he's tired. I'm sure Nick's tired.
And Nick and Nick, yeah. And again, Nick had a great day even before the 2 big moments late in the game. I mean, he walked a couple of times, and that defensive play alone, like, would have been the game changer because D'Onofrio probably would have scored, because even if he doesn't score on the next hit, he'd be at third with no outs.
Right.
So that was a major play. That it's funny. I think that UNC's probably cursing D'Onofrio a little bit, but they needed a perfect throw to make that out.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even like the perfect throw from Merrick at home plate. I mean, everything just came down to the defense on Wake's for the field for Wake. I mean, it was just crazy. You think about it's an inch to the left, inch to the right, timing's off, whatever. It's crazy.
Speaking of which, what was your reaction to in that inning that UNC came back in the 8th? The ball bouncing, Tellier's lined up, ready to roll, and the ball ricochets off second base.
I mean,
that's just there's nothing you can do. That's baseball, but
that's baseball. And in the moment, I'm in a Wake Forest baseball group chat, and in the moment, I was very mad at the group chat. I was like, why aren't they pulling Johnson? And I was kind of a wreck, but no, then I realized, that's baseball. The ball going up the middle, hitting second base, and it just like going 15 feet in the air into center field. I mean, that's just nuts. That's just
Tellier's literally there, in plenty of time waiting for it, and it's just.
And Zach did his job. Like, he got him to ground out and hopefully force the double play, or I forgot how many outs there were, but I mean, just unfortunate right there.
Yep. So anyway, let's talk about previews. So Wake Forest is playing at 1. They're Florida State. They played today as well, but they had a lot more rest. However, Jamie Arnold is out. They might start Carson Dorsey. I mean, what are you feeling confident if you're Wake Forest still? I mean, because this could also be a huge boost in momentum and confidence.
I think it's a huge boost for sure. I think they're very relieved that they got to semis, but I do worry for Wake about the matchups, about the bullpen. I mean, a lot of guys went pretty deep, and they're going to have to turn around in 12 hours and do it again. If you're Wake, you got to hope Josh has his stuff. He gives you at least 6. And I think you'd be feeling pretty good after that. I mean, you still got Will Ray out of the pen. I mean, they haven't used Crawford Wade. He's been good since coming back off of injury. Massey, like you confirmed, is not going to be in, but we'll see. I mean, this has to be the Josh Hartle game if Wake wants a shot at going to the championship.
Yeah, let me just tell Kane's Cats he's in here talking trash about Carson Dorsey because he didn't get any outs. Carson Dorsey's numbers as a reliever versus a starter are very, very, very different. I'm not sure why Florida State went with that plan, knowing that he doesn't do well in relief. Because when they put him in as a starter, he's been absolutely lights out, replacing Cam Leiter and Connor Whitaker in that rotation. It's just funny that he goes back. He's in the bullpen for the first time in a couple months, and it's back to the Clemson situation where he gave up the 2 grand slams to Blake Wright. But as a starter, he's been lights out when the last month and a half when he's filled in for Cam Leiter. So just wanted to cover that. Like, Carson Dorsey is a lot better than you might think, even though he got lit up today. And again, I think that has the fact that UVA was getting to face anybody but Jamie Arnold at that point, I think played a major factor in him getting lit up as well, because UVA was just happy they got that mental lift. But
yeah.
All right, let's move on to talking about Duke and Miami, which will play at 5. Miami, they are 2 wins away from stealing a bid, which I will laugh hysterically at as long as they don't steal a bid from an ACC team, because I really don't want them to take Georgia Tech's bid. But how are you feeling going into that game? I know you were here to see Duke last night. What do you think about Duke and how they're playing right now?
Duke's playing awesome. I mean, that lineup does not give you a break. I mean, it's Miller, it's Obi, it's all those guys. They're on fire right now. The bullpen was great last night against NC State. State didn't have an answer for them. I mean, Healy went deep, and then who came in? Talon. I'm sure they'll use him tomorrow if they need to after a day's rest. But that lineup is scary. It's very, very scary. And do we know who's going for Miami as the starter?
Herrick Hernandez.
Okay, so see, that's the thing, is that Miami's rotation is one of the best in the ACC. I mean, they're very, very good, but it's going to be a very interesting matchup because I think Miami's rotation is awesome, but Duke's bats are just as good. I love what I'm going to see tomorrow night. I can't wait for this game. Yeah, but, I mean, Miami. What I've seen out of Miami the last 2 games that they've played is what I was kind of expecting to see, like, this whole time. Like, their talent is showing up. They're being nitty gritty. They're actually proving themselves. I just hope that, like, it's not too. I mean, it is too little, too late if you don't win it. But they're really starting to click here in the tournament where it matters most.
Yeah, and they're real dangerous, and obviously Duke's set up, and I think a lot of people are going to assume Duke will steamroll this, but I'm sure that's what they thought with Clemson the other day against Miami. So Duke was able to save Kyle Johnson when they were up by a bunch. Healy was so good and was able to go 5 innings, which everyone was shocked about because he was on a pretty low pitch count, but he was really efficient and was able to go, and they were able to save Kyle Johnson. And Charlie Bielenson didn't pitch either, and we know he wants to pitch every chance he gets. It's ridiculous how he is. And it was funny because I was watching him pacing behind Pollard during the game, and it's just so funny because, like, he just wants to pitch, and they're like, just get out of here, Charlie. Like, so it'll be a lot of fun, I think, to watch and see those 2 teams go head to head.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's gonna be a fun one. Both games are gonna be fun, but that Duke Miami game, the bats are hot for both. The pitching's great. Miami, I mean, the story right now, Miami could be a bid stealer. I would love it if that happened. I hope it doesn't happen to Georgia Tech because I know they're kind of bubblish right now. Going 0-2 did not help their cause at all. But that would be awesome if Miami could pull this out.
All right, who you going with as your pick?
All right, I'm going Florida State, and I'm going Duke.
All right. I'm actually right there with you. I think Wake Forest is just they're going to be fine, but I think this really helped boost their hosting, and I think that's big. But yeah, I think they've run out of a little bit of gas here, and Florida State is rolling, and I really like what they've got. It'll be interesting to see if Florida State will have enough pitching to win again on Sunday if they win tomorrow. But Duke, I really like them as well. I think it'll be Florida State and Duke because Duke's not going to take Miami lightly, and Herrick Hernandez hasn't been particularly good, and I think they're gonna put up a lot of runs, and I think Miami's offense is going to disappear a bit, and
yeah. Who would you say between Wake and Duke right now has the higher odds of hosting regionals?
Wake.
But
if Duke wins the ACC tournament, that might make the difference. But I think Wake is ahead of them if they don't win the ACC tournament.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about these semifinals, that you got two teams fighting for a hosting bid, kind of in the similar boat. Because I agree with you, Wake, I think it's just a little bit further ahead than Duke right now in terms of that conversation. But it would be wild if Wake and Duke ended up in the championship, and not only are you fighting for the conference championship, but winner is likely hosting.
Yep.
Even if it would stink that, like, if one of those teams lost the championship and that was kind of your goal, was to get to the championship to be a real hosting contender, but the other team across the diamond from you is also in the similar boat as you, and they end up winning. So there's a lot more than a conference tournament championship being played for if it's Wake and Duke in the finals.
Oh yeah, and Duke has never hosted a regional at Jack Coombs, so that would be pretty special. But anyway, we're gonna be. Are you coming back tomorrow?
I'll be there tomorrow for both games.
All right, so we're both gonna be back, boots on the ground. Nick will be in the crowd, mingling with the people because he is a man of the people.
Man of the people.
Yeah.
Very good game.
It'll be 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock. The two games are scheduled to be. It's going to be a fun time. I've got articles posted on the site. I've got a lot of presser videos. I've got Chase Burns is talking about the revenge game and how his pitches were working. I've got Kurtz talking about his no doubt go ahead home run. I got Scott Forbes talking about his opening statement to the game, and lots of great content coming out. And obviously Micah's still producing stuff even though he's not on site. So keep looking at that.
Yeah, sounds good. I can't wait to be there tomorrow, man. It's going to be electric. Can't wait.
Oh yeah. And we'll be back doing another live show tomorrow night.
Sounds good.
All right.